Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Sideshed podcast. I'm your host, Matt, and I hope this message finds you full of festive cheer. And as the year comes to a close, I thought it'd be a good opportunity right now to look back on an incredible 2024 and to celebrate the episodes that you guys told us made the biggest impact on you and your business. So today we are counting down the Sideshed top 10 episodes of the year, from insightful interviews right through to actionable strategies. These are the episodes that you guys told us helped you guys the most within your business, and maybe along the way had a bit of a laugh or two, I hope anyway. So anyway, regardless, grab yourself a mince pie, grab yourself a beer, get comfy, and let's dive into the highlights of the year gone by. Thank you once again for being part of the journey. And here's to an even bigger 2025. And of course, if there's anything that you want to hear more about, make sure you let us know. Otherwise, let's jump on in.
A prospect gives you, oh, the last guy left a mess. Most of us, if we're not trained and disciplined, are going to go, well, we never leave a mess, and we have a checklist that we follow. We Swiffer all the floors of the room, and you just start like throwing up on people, where the elite salesperson is going to go, Matt, you mentioned that your wife had to clean up after the painters every night for a week. Tell me more about that, okay? It's peeling the onion back, right? Layer after layer after layer, and not making assumptions. So this guy I was telling you about, it would have been really easy to make some assumptions. Long story short, by the time we never left his foyer and I sold, I don't know, it was a $28,000, $30,000 project. He didn't even know what the price was going to be because I kept peeling it back to what was really important to him. And what was really important to him was, I don't want my wife to have to go through that again. I mean, dude, this guy came home from traveling, had to sleep on the couch for 2 nights because his wife was pissed at him because of the contractor they hired, right? So it had nothing to do the roller nap and the spray tips and the technical things that most contractors think are important. It all was about the experience. And so back to our wedding planner issue, right? She made assumptions about what was important to us and spent no time peeling things back. Had she, or the basement floor guy that I dealt with, like if they would have just peeled some things back, okay, and not just pounced on the first sign of an opening to share how great we are, it would change the game. And I've just seen it over and over in my own life, the people we work with in our sales program and stuff. Like when you really learn how to peel things back, shut your mouth and let them talk, you're going to find out what's truly important to them. Because most people blame price right away. Why didn't they hire you? Why didn't you close that deal? It says the sales manager, the sales guy, and the sales guy, it was out of their budget. No, it really wasn't out of their budget. You just didn't know how to connect with them about what was really important to them. Yes, there's always that percentage of people that it's truly out of the budget.
Let's just say, for example, you want to rewire your house and you go get 3 quotes. You say, I'm going to get 3 blokes to give me a quote. That's on a much larger scale. That's all the government's doing. But they're saying, we've got 20 government buildings and we need someone to come and change all the light bulbs whenever they break. So instead of getting 3 quotes, we're going to write the specification saying, okay, we need someone to come when we call them to fix the light bulb, to leave it clean and do that. And we're going to release that to anyone who wants to bid for it. Every electrician in New South Wales can have a crack. Then those electricians will all write a document saying, we've got a team of 6 Sparkies. We're really good because we always change light bulbs. It's our specialty. We've done it for the university. We've done it for local schools, whatever. Here's our pricing and this is why you should choose us. And that, when they write that out into a document, that's essentially a tender. It's like a quote, but a much more fancy version of a quote.
I think we have seen more than anything across our customer base, folks investing into building their own universities. Interestingly, investing more into kind of the EQ side. You hear this a lot, like hiring for attitude, not aptitude. You see that happening in more intentional ways. Some guys listening to this, guys and gals coming from the same background I did, because when I first heard it, I rolled my eyes too. Where it's like, oh, we're going to do trust falls. We're going to start doing psychoanalysis on technicians, right? But getting a sense of what someone cares about, what drives them, and how they're motivated is really helpful in managing them and understanding what kind of contributor they're going to be. So I'm seeing an interesting number of companies, kind of small, medium, and large, investing into understanding the soft skills first and saying the technical piece we can figure out. And so that's coming more and more for sure.
So we bring it back to quoting and estimating. I think that with this episode, it's talking about the technology side of it and how the tools can work as part of your technology platform. And I wanted to relate it to that whole old way versus new way. So with the new way being, the new workflow being going and seeing, communicating with the client, qualifying the client, getting as much information from them as possible. So having a system where the client can send you photos or videos that can maybe go straight into your system and save as a file against your job, or when they submit an inquiry, they can submit photos and more information for you to have as much info as possible so you can make that decision on whether you want to quote that job. So it's kind of all the way back to that inquiry phase. And then if you make the decision that yes, we want to quote the job, I'm going to go out and do a site visit, go and see the client, assess the work, having the right tools to then capture information while you're there on site. So it might be taking photos or videos. It might be measuring tools. So there's some pretty cool measuring functions built into phones and tablets these days. We talked last time about calculation or the estimating. So having the ability to do the calculation of how much the work's going to cost to be done. So working out the labor and the materials, or having kits that kind of pre-built combinations of labor and materials. So you can do that calculation of how much you're going to quote the client. For little service and maintenance jobs, it's probably a lot simpler than it would be for larger scale project style jobs. But even so, it's still having a methodology that lets you do that calculation there and then, so that you don't have to go away and make phone calls to people and do your calculations separately and then have to send the quote to the client later on. We want to get as much of it done while we're there on site as we can, and actually present the quote to the client there and then and go through it with them as like a quote presentation.
I grew up basically working at a company called Tussey Landscaping here in central Pennsylvania. I worked there since I was 16 years old. I worked there for 15 years. And during that time frame, I took on more and more responsibility. I started doing a YouTube channel and all the content creation, the marketing efforts for the company. And where Synced Up eventually came from, which is a software and an app for contractors to price their jobs profitably, is we were trying to solve this problem ourselves. Like, we were working hard, making happy customers, beautiful projects, but looking at the bank account and being like, where in the world is it all going? Beautiful work, you should be doing well, right? So as we pursued ways to solve this problem, we a really long story short, ended up building a software solution for it. And I was an employee at Tussey Landscaping. I was not an owner. And I kind of just started developing this vision to be like, dude, this is not just a problem unique to us. This is an industry problem. And so I rallied the support of the owners of Tussey Landscaping, and fast forward here, today we split it off as its own company. Synced Up is its own company. It's a software company that we sell software to contractors. And today I run that company. I don't work day to day in Tussey Landscaping anymore, but Tussey Landscaping is still running as successfully as they've ever been. And so today I run that company. We have a team of 12 currently and growing every day. Okay, I want to make $1 million business. Sure, who doesn't? Well, how do I get that? Well, let's figure out how to do a $1,000 job 100 times.
Exactly. And then it's like, oh, that's all I've got to do. That means I've just got to sell 2 of these a week.
You're right, exactly. It's like start with the end in mind, break it down into quarterly, quarterly, monthly, and then what do I have to do this week and what do I have to do today?
Yeah, I just think it makes so much sense, and and of course the budgeting aspect of it, really speaking to the financials, but like as you just alluded to there, like when you break those financials down into actual things, like I need to sell 2 of these a week to become $1 million business.
Yes.
Like that's like a polarizing view.
Yes. And what can happen is you know, as you grow your business, you grow like the overhead infrastructure and the costs it takes to keep your business doors open and all of that. And suddenly, this is what a lot of contractors forget. Suddenly they realize like, oh, I can't afford to do that little one-off job anymore. I have to be producing a higher revenue per man hour rate. And so my daily minimum is say $5,000 or whatever it is. Like I don't care if you're landscaping, I don't care if I'm planting 5 shrubs, it's going to be $5,000. Like that's my minimum. And then, so that kind of really helps you say no to the things that, wow, sure, in that little job you might be able to make a profit, but what about you didn't produce enough overall to meet your goals?
Sure, yeah. And and I think as well that whole, like the problem that you see a lot of businesses make, and like I at times have been guilty of it myself, you know, where you think, okay, well, the goal is the number, like the goal, okay, we want to be a 100K a month business or whatever. And it's like, it's not, it's like you said before, it's kind of a lag effect. Like what you really should be doing is selling 10 units at 10K. Mm-hmm. Like we need to sell 10 of these units. It's not we need to reach 100K, like, because there's nothing really that ties that to what you do. You know, it's really how do we understand what the products is, what our price points are, and how many of them how many units we need to sell to achieve that number. That number is the after. That's what comes as a result of doing the thing, right?
At first, it feels a little weird. You're going to feel like you broke the business because no one is calling you with an emergency question. And you're going to check your phone and wonder, is your self-service cut off? Because you're going to find that you actually have time to actually work on the business, you and the leaders, because you're going to be able to think about the future, be able to think about next week, think about next year, and actually have some thoughts about the actual business instead of constantly feeling like you're putting out fires and putting out those emergencies. And so you'll feel a big difference. At first, you're going to feel a little bit guilty, like you should be working harder, but this is what working smarter looks like. You're allowing your team to take care of the customer. You know that your business is working well for you when you attract new leads, close the sale, deliver the service, invoice the customer, and collect payment without you as the business owner or leader being involved. And you're just going to feel so much freedom. You're going to wonder, oh, well, what else am I supposed to do? Well, there's going to be training, recruiting, building the culture, company meetings. There's still a lot of things that you've probably been dreaming about doing, and now you'll actually have the time to do it.
That consistency is really common, and that's probably like typically when businesses come to us, that's the obstacle they're having. It's just an inconsistent workflow, which has ripple effects, right? Because it kind of means that it's very hard for you to forecast and structure growth because you don't have that consistent workflow up and down. You're like, oh, I want to hire a new person because we're busy this month, but then if we hire them the next month, they'll be sitting on their ass doing nothing. So it's a real common thing. How has that played out between then and now? What's that look like?
Yeah, so that's changed heaps, right? So we obviously started working with you guys. We had our little implementation period where you build out our website and our CRM and everything like that. Since sending ads live, we've been able to manage that consistency and basically be in control of that ourselves, right? So it's now just a matter of if we are feeling like we're dipping, we can put more money into those ads if we like, and just to really boost that up a little bit. But we've really found that hasn't been an issue for us moving on out from there. We've been flat out basically ever since.
Yeah, and I mentioned the other day, like you guys have pretty much doubled the business, right? In that 5-month period. So I'm curious now, and again, this is 100% of the time with every client that we work with, there's a path of, let's call it obstacles that will appear once you solve one problem. So when people come to us, typically it's like, okay, we need leads. Okay, great. We'll solve that problem. Truthfully, one of the easy parts, but then in every instance, there's the next bottleneck is sales process. And then the next problem is fulfillment and scale. What I want to talk to you today about is like in the interest of like doubling the business in the space of 5 months, which is a significant jump. What does that look like for you from fulfillment? And what does it look like from you with like your approach now to systems and process and that kind of stuff? Like, how has that made your forced change?
Well, definitely from the systems and sales side, like we've had a complete overhaul. Basically went from running the business off a mobile phone before, which was not efficient at all. We were really struggling with that. We were missing things coming through there. Having the hub built out just to manage all the leads in one place and funnel everything through quick and easy sales process for someone to handle. That's been really a game changer for our business, and just being able to manage and track everything from there.
So your last 12 months has been pretty crazy, but I'd like to get a bit of a line graph of some of the bigger things that have occurred within that space. Obviously, you've grown the team significantly, you've grown the business significantly, and I'd love to hear about some of those achievements.
Yeah, so look, like as any other sort of business owner, we're in our 6th year now. So as you know, that there's that 5-year mark that you've got to sort of get over, and we were just spinning the wheels up until that point. And then really like the last 12 months that we had, we're pretty much just doing a bit of contracting work. We're doing a lot of our own sales, but mainly just working for sales-based companies and doing contracting work, builders, all the rest of it. And something sort of had to just change. Decided to more or less just spend a bunch of money getting our website going, getting our marketing on point, getting the ads happening, all the rest of it. For context, it was just me and one apprentice at the start of the year. So January of 2023, me and one guy. Many of you may know Lorenzo if you do watch the TikToks. So me and him, he was a 4th year apprentice at the start of the year. Fast forward 12 months, we now have pretty well 10 in-house employees. So that ranges from, ground crew, so guys on the tools, and admin and bookkeeping and accounting as well. So the last 12 months has been pretty wild. Yeah, and we've sort of really just hit the ground running this year, and yeah, it's been good.
I mean, from my understanding, estimating suggests it's an estimate. And so when we're talking with our clients and we're like, okay, at this point, you want to be able to give the customer an estimate so they kind of know what the sort of price bracket they're in, so that if they don't have the budget, you know about it now and you don't waste any more time with them. That's kind of our positioning on estimating. Whereas, and then at a certain point in the process, we're like, okay, now give them a quote at this point because they know the price and they're already expecting it, and you've done a bit more digging, a bit more homework.
It's one way to look at it. And this is perfect. It's exactly why we're talking about this. Because when we think about it from a technology and software perspective, estimating is kind of the process that you go through to work out, and depending on whether it's estimating and quoting a service and maintenance style job or project style job. But if we're talking about a project style job, the estimating part is getting the plans or getting the scope of works and putting together, breaking it down and putting together the calculation part. So the estimate of what is the material we need, what is the labor that we need, what are the subbies we're going to need, what's all that part, doing the calculation piece, and then putting together the quote. And the quote is like the client-facing piece. So I think the estimating part, if we're estimating project-style work, the estimating part is the calculation, and the quoting part is the customer-facing side.
Yeah, interesting.
And there's software that can do both.
New Zealand-based home renovation company, 6,593% ROAS. Sydney-based solar company, 2,700% ROAS. Hunter region-based bathroom renovation company, 5,616% ROAS. Melbourne-based building company, 13,182% return on ad spend. Adelaide-based solar company, 2,881% return on ad spend. Guys, the list goes on and on. If you're a trade-based business and you work with projects like roofing, solar, bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, anything like that, head across to tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Book in a conversation. It is game changing.